you're part of HRT, and in 1992, you get called in for the Ruby Ridge standoff.
Yeah.
This was a real train wreck.
Yeah.
Now, explain from your point of view what happens.
I'm not going to go into a great deal because we got a lot to talk about, and this was a tiny part of my life a very long time ago. Mm-hmm. But I realize that it is now American history. It's extremely controversial. It was a train wreck, and you have a very, very valid question. The bottom line is this. In that time, in those years, meaning the early 1990s, the United States government was dealing with a domestic terrorism threat that we don't really understand today in the same terms, right? It was white supremacist. It was Christian identity movement. There was a book called the Turner Diaries that was leading to a formation of a lot of these organizations. And somebody had to deal with the possibility that they would commit crimes within the United States. For whatever reason, and I have no idea, for whatever reason, the Marshal Service decided to go find this guy on a mountaintop in Idaho named Randy Weaver, who came out of the military. He was a special forces guy. They went up there for whatever reason to do a surveillance in anticipation of an arrest warrant, a search warrant, I think.
Well, yeah, I guess he had bought a sawed-off shotgun.
I think he did.
And it was sawed off a little bit lower than you were supposed to do. So it was kind of a slap on the wrist kind of situation.
Yes.
That escalated.
It escalated. And the reality is he may or may not have made the shotgun for somebody else. The questionability of that crime is staggering, right? We could talk about that all day. I had nothing to do with that. I was not part of the investigation. I didn't know about the marshals. I didn't know about the shotgun. I didn't know about the fact that he had refused to go to court to answer the charges. I knew nothing about that. All I knew was that if something bad happened in the United States, my team was the last backstop. If something went wrong, we were the ones they would send. So they didn't, when I went to Ruby Ridge, Idaho in 1992, I didn't care what happened. I didn't know anything about the details. I was sent up there for a reason. And that's largely where it went bad.
Well, right, because an agent went on his property with an arrest warrant for Randy Weaver. Like, during the process of trying to do this, he ran into Weaver's 14-year-old son, Samuel, and the dog.
Yes.
The dog, I guess, like, lunged at the officer. He shot the dog. And then, I guess the son pointed a gun at the agents.
No one's ever resolved that. There's been civil suits, lawsuits, congressional hearings. I testified for the Senate. I mean, it was a massive, massive response, and rightfully so, right?
Right.
But nobody's ever resolved what happened except for this. The Marshal Service decided to send guys up on a mountaintop. Well, it's a hill. It's not really a mountain. To try to figure out how to arrest this guy. While they were going up, sneaking around in camouflage clothes, through the woods, they get close to the house. The dog probably heard them. The dog chased them. Sammy came out of the house with a rifle with Randy Weaver and with Kevin Harris and Bill Deegan, the marshal involved, and Sam somehow got involved in a gunfight. Who fired first? I don't know. It's never been resolved. I was not there. I had nothing to do with it. I know as much about this as you do. But once that happened, we had a federal agent dead, and you have the child, Sam, dead, but nobody knew that.
Right.
Nobody knew that. So they retreat to the house. The marshals retreat down the hill. They've got to call somebody to resolve the situation. My team was the entity they called to resolve the situation.
Right. So you show up. There's a dead federal agent,
yes.
A dead 14-year-old boy.
Yes.
And
we did not know that at the time.
Right. And the rest of the family is holed up in the house.
Yes.
And refusing to surrender.
Correct.
So what do you do at that point?
First thing we went up is, first of all, when you have a situation like that, you don't know what's going on. We did not know what's going on. So you've got hundreds or thousands of acres of wilderness with this knoll and this little cabin on the top of the knoll. And now whether or not 30 years of hindsight, we look back on it, whether or not you believe in the propriety of the arrest warrant and how it went down, you still have a federal agent killed in execution of his official duties. So I didn't question that. So the answer is the federal government, meaning the FBI, wanted to surround the house. They wanted to make sure they had the people contained in the house so that they could arrest them. Or they could do the arrest, do the investigation, go from there. So a team of snipers, because that was our primary responsibility, my primary responsibility, 7 of us walk up this mountain, and in the pouring rain, it's probably 33 or 34 degrees. After being up for 36 hours, we flew in from Quantico, Virginia, drove out, set up our gear, walk up a mountain, we surround the cabin, and that's when things went bad.
Right, because during the standoff, another FBI sniper, Lon Horiuchi?
Yeah, yes. I say that because it's wide knowledge now. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
One of your coworkers ends up shooting Weaver, but then shot Harris, but a second shot also killed Weaver's wife, Vicky.
First shot killed. Yeah, that's right. It was the second shot. So I guess we're in this now. I did not anticipate talking about this, but
Yeah.
let's make sure that people understand correctly what happened. You have a cabin on a hilltop surrounded by forest. You have a dead federal agent. We did not know that we had a dead 14-year-old. We had no information. When I got there, because of the nature of, there was no internet back then. There were no cell phones back then. There was no means of communication. I didn't care about any of those things. My mission was to go up on a mountaintop, surround the cabin, secure the scene so that somebody else could come in and arrest the people in the cabin. That was the objective. Okay? At the time, I should say, my sniper training was I attended and graduated the Marine Corps Scout Sniper School. I've been to many military schools. I've just never been in the military. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Go up there. There were 7 of us. We set up. You're hiking up through the mountains, very low-hanging clouds. It's pouring rain. Been up for better part of 2 days. We hike up. I don't know how many hours it took to get up there. You climb up. You've got to set up a promontory so that you can put surveillance on the cabin. We didn't know if they were in the cabin, out the cabin. We didn't know anything. So we set up positions. 2 snipers, 2 snipers, 2 snipers, 3 snipers. Or, I'm sorry, 2 and 3. My position was 3. I was highest above the cabin on a rock slab. So you sneak in, you set up a position, you hide, and then you get eyes on the cabin. Within a very short period of time, minutes, maybe seconds, but certainly within minutes, all of a sudden the 3 people in the cabin came running out of the cabin with guns, with long rifles. One had I think 2 had a Mini 14. One of them had a scoped rifle. From my perspective, even though I was 270 yards away, I forget the distance, I knew nothing about that terrain, and they're running right at me. So the world for a sniper is looking through a scope. You have very little field of view other than that. And my perspective, the perspective of the other people there and the snipers, who I could not see, we were probably 100 or more yards apart, hiding in the woods, were coming right at us. So because of the nature of sound in those situations, I saw them coming. We always work on what are called rules of engagement. Rules of engagement for the FBI are you may not use deadly force unless you or someone else is in jeopardy of grievous bodily harm or death. So the rules of engagement are you can't shoot unless these things happen. Anybody listening to this podcast is going to know the most controversial element of the Ruby Ridge situation was that we were given different rules of engagement. And those rules of engagement basically said, if you see them come out, you can shoot them. So the question has always been, did we go up there with an order to kill the people in the cabin? That 30 years later is the controversy. I'll say that I've been through a tremendous amount of inquiry contemporaneous to the crimes. There was a grand jury that basically tried to put us in jail for murder.
Really?
They executed search warrants. They came into our building, which was a secretive, very, very closely held, contained compound where we trained and worked and where we spent all of our time. They came in and executed search warrants. They, being the government, initiated hearings with the United States Senate. I showed up in a suit at a terrorism committee with some very well-known senators at the time, Thompson, who was in all the Tom Clancy movies, and Dianne Feinstein, and you stand and put your hand in the air and you testify. It was a prolonged, very, very detailed, and pretty extraordinary series of investigations on what happened. So I wrote about this. The first book I ever wrote, the first book I ever published was called Cold Zero, about my life in those times. I wrote that book about 3 years after the thing happened, 3 or 4 years after the thing happened, and I write in great detail. So if anybody ever wants to know what happened, when I was in those years, I write about it in great depth. It was a big New York Times bestseller. And so whatever I say now is likely to be a mistake, but I've been very, very candid about what happened and my perspectives about what happened.
I mean, you weren't the sniper that did the shooting.
No, but I will say, and I've said this publicly before, for those who shoot, we had custom-made rifles at a 10-power scope. My rifle, a .308 caliber, built on a Remington 700 frame, the trigger broke about 2 pounds, which is, breathe on it and it goes off. Very, very a hair trigger. Some people would call it a hair trigger. I had my finger on the trigger. I had my crosshairs on the people, and I was trying to take the shot, but they were going from tree to rock to outbuilding to water tank. They were moving around. I didn't have the shot. I made the decision to shoot. I did not have the shot, and I did not pull the trigger. Lon had the shot. He made the same decision, and he did. So I've never shirked, in my opinion, of myself. I've never shirked the responsibility that I made the decision that he did, and I know some of the other guys did too. I did not shoot. He did, and we're still living with the consequences now.
I mean, when the dust settled with all the lawsuits and the hearings and the grand jury and everything else like that, was there any fault by the FBI in this case or no?
It depends on how you look at it. Randy Weaver and I believe Kevin Harris won money in a civil action against the federal government.
How much?
I think it was $2 million, $2 or $4 million.
Okay.
At the time was quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
And so there was some culpability, but no Senate hearing, no grand jury. I mean, I remember being in a grand jury, and if you're an FBI agent, you present cases to a grand jury. It's a part of your day-to-day job, or it is for many FBI agents, right? And I remember very clearly when I was in the grand jury, and I realized that I was the subject of the investigation, and they were trying to prove that I was collaborating in the murder of a private citizen. And that was kind of eye-opening. I had written a book prior to that, a novel, and they subpoenaed the manuscript to my novel, and they took things from the book. It was a very elaborate investigation. Nothing was ever, no one was ever prosecuted, no one was ever demoted, to the best of my knowledge, as a result of that. But there was a civil judgment against the government. So I suppose, there was consequence. So good.